Wendy Starland's story shows how hard work and being true to yourself can lead to success. She discovered Lady Gaga and turned her passion into a global success. In this episode, Wendy talks about key moments in her career, like performing with famous musicians and finding Lady Gaga in a small club. She shares tips on recognizing real talent and staying true to yourself in a world full of AI and technology. We also discuss challenges artists face today, like the rise of AI content. Wendy is creating a new platform to help artists succeed by focusing on real performance and personal stories. Why is this important? Because even in a tech-driven world, real human talent and storytelling are irreplaceable. Wendy's insights show that staying true to yourself and to your craft can lead to success. This episode is for anyone who wants to build a meaningful career in art. Wendy Starland is a Grammy-nominated songwriter and producer known for working with some of the biggest artists in the world and creating platforms that support independent artists. Enjoy the episode. So, hi Wendy, it's such a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I love being here. Thanks, Shirley.
So let's start with the first question, a little bit about you and what inspired you to be a musician yourself and an artist. Is there someone who inspired you or something that inspired you to become an artist or a musician? What were your first steps in this world?
Well, yes is the answer. There are several people who inspired me and then one who made me into a professional. So it started off, my babysitter growing up is Rosetta Atkins. I was a gospel singer from down south, and she taught me how to sing as soon as I could speak. I've known her literally since I was a baby. And my father played classical music on the piano. So I had all these different kinds of influences. My uncle was a guitarist in a band called Gollum, but also was playing alongside people like Bruce Springsteen, the Allman Brothers, Black Sabbath. So I had all these different kinds of musical influences around me, and I started writing songs when I was about 7 years old. And so by the time I was 18, I'd been doing it a long time, and opportunities started coming. So one time with my friends and I, we used to get our fake IDs and go down to go to the clubs when we were underage. And they said, okay, a guy named Maceo Parker is playing. And I wasn't familiar with who he was. And Maceo Parker is the lead saxophone player for James Brown. And when James Brown went solo, his entire band stayed intact and he became the front man. He sounds just like James Brown. Anyway, I went to this concert with my friends. I, basically got past the bouncer somehow, and it was, general admission, got up to front row center, and he pulled me out of the audience and put me up on stage. And at first I was just dancing around. I'm like, this is great. Wow, so fun. And I went back down, and it was as if, just something that had never happened to me before or since, by the way. And then, as if I did it incorrectly, is like God was giving me another chance. And he pulls me back up on stage again, which I couldn't believe. I mean, once was
What are
enough.
the odds?
What are the odds? Exactly. And so he pulls me back up on stage again. And when I hear music that I love, I just start singing along. And so I started just sort of quickly, and quietly singing to myself. But it was a big, loud band. No one could hear me. But the trombone player next to me could hear me, and he tapped the microphone in front of my mouth. And to prove to Maceo Parker that I could sing, I started harmonizing with him on stage. And so all of a sudden, in front of 1,000 people packed in like sardines, this is like my first real live performance. Anyway, I started scatting on his stage, improvising my own kind of song for 20 minutes. He ended up sending the entire band off the stage and Maceo, who plays sax, went back on the drums, starts kicking this funky beat. I'm singing on his stage, like improvising, and he left the bass player on there, and literally the crowd went wild. And that was just this exhilarating experience. And so at the end, he's like, "What's your name, darling?" I'm like, "Wendy Starland." It's like, "Wendy Starland, everyone." Everyone's going crazy. And the bass player says into the microphone, "Everybody shut up." And we're like, "What?" Who says that to a roaring crowd? He had taken the bass string off of his bass guitar, coiled it up into a little tiny circle, got down on one knee as if he was proposing to me, and he took me by the hand in front of 1,000 people, and he said, "Wendy, darling, I don't know what you're doing in this club. You're way too young to be here. But I will tell you right now that you have a gift from God, and you must devote the rest of your life to using this gift, or else you will rob the rest of us of something so special." And he took the ring and he put it on my finger and he said, "From this day forward, you are married to music." And I got the chills. It was incredible. Anyway, it was written up in all the newspapers the next day. And so that was my start, because all of the club owners and whatnot, the venues had started to see this in the papers. And so I put a band together quickly. I had been writing songs for as long as I could remember, and that was how I joined the music business.
So it sounds like you had everything, the talent, the inspiration from a very young age, and then the opportunity to, to stand out, to be out there. Do you recommend anything to people that are, dreaming about it and maybe inspired, but they don't know whether to start or not?
Well, I would say that right now, music is in such a different place than it was back then. Unfortunately, there have been so many changes. And for people who want to pursue a life in music, you have to understand that there are so many different facets of it. There is people are like, "Oh, you just have to be a great singer, a great musician, and have great songs." But you have to have that as sort of the baseline. You need great production. You need a team around you of people who are evangelizing for you. You need to understand marketing. All of these musicians are basically little entrepreneurs, and you need to be able to see yourself objectively as a package and a product and market it just like you would market anything else. And it's really important now with these days, with there's AI, there's all these different kinds of new challenges and competition and flooding the market, but there's also distribution like there wasn't back then, because back then you had to have a record deal to get into the studio and tour and whatnot. These days, you can make a great record from your laptop. A lot of the big artists are doing that. So you have the ability to make very high quality products, but how is anybody going to find you? And so there are
Yeah.
new methods and technology that can help that I'm targeting right now.
We will talk a little bit about this later, both about, the opportunities and about the flood of musicians and creators and artists, which is like a mix now, right? Being a creator or being an artist.
That's
You
right.
discovered yourself an artist that we all love and know. And I'm trying to understand really what was there that you found very very appealing, or how did you know that you were discovering something that is a real talent and not just another random person who can sing? Or, how did you know this is going to be a success and an artist, or you didn't know maybe?
Well, I had just to sort of skip to that time period, because we just went from when I was a teenager to when I discovered Lady Gaga. Basically, I had at that point, just to give you context, I had at that point signed a record deal with Universal. I was a touring musician. I toured for about 3 years, opening up for people like Jack White, Sheryl Crow, alongside the Foo Fighters and different artists like that. And I was honored by the Songwriters Hall of Fame at that point. This is like when I was like 25, something like that. And they the Songwriters Hall of Fame thing was a big deal because there weren't a lot of people my age who had that honor. They're usually in their 80s or 70, much older. And so when I got back to the US, after touring for a few years, all of the different producers asked me to be, all these multi-platinum producers came to me and said, will you be my in-house songwriter? Because the craft of production is completely different than the craft of songwriting. And they said, we would love to be able to do our magic with the production, and you can help with that too. But definitely on the songwriting side, they wanted help. So a producer called me up. He had many, many hits, people that he had worked with: Beyonce, Jessica Simpson, Britney Spears, Whitney Houston, Will Smith, Jennifer Lopez. I mean, tons and tons of artists. And the first time we got together for a recording session, we wrote 6 or 7 songs in one day. I mean, it was unbelievable. There was total incredible magic there. And we got to a point where we were writing for a lot of big artists. And I said, it would really be great to take someone completely unknown and try to make them famous instead of trying to write in the genre of a famous established artist that, there's sort of limitations and guardrails there. I much prefer to take someone completely unknown, try to, create our own style that, this artist would perform. And so we started writing.
Sorry, do you think what drove you to do that? Because it's a great idea if you think about it. Do you think what drove you to do it is your passion to create something truly, from the start, just like an
Yes.
artist do?
Of course. I mean, listen, each song, even for an established artist, is unique and amazing. But to try to break out and to do something totally different than everything else that was out there, that was the goal. And so we really felt that we had achieved that. And he said, okay, you go out and go to all these shows. Went to over probably 60 shows, over maybe 70, lot of shows. Search for the person who can sing these songs, and we'll collaborate with them and write new songs and do all this stuff. Anyway, fast forward, I had independently been, I hadn't had a publishing deal at that point. I do, now, but at that time I hadn't had a publishing deal, and I had over 2,000 recorded songs. And my sort of manager at the time was shopping me to different publishing deals. And so for those of you who may not know what a publishing deal is for a recording artist or songwriter, it's basically kind of like a record deal for a songwriter, where they give you upfront money and, they earn it back through royalties. Anyway, the, secretary, intern, whatever role she was in, she was a girl named Stephanie Germanato was working for the president or CEO of Famous Music Publishing. I was Irwin Robinson, and I was going into his office, and I'd see her and met her, and she was always very kind to me and very nice, and had been listening, to my music and whatnot. And he went to go perform at a place called The Cutting Room in New York City, where I was singing one night, and I got a tap on the shoulder from this girl, Stephanie Germanotta, and she said to me, Wendy, I don't know if you remember me from Irwin Robinson's office, but, I'm performing on the same bill with you tonight. It would be so great, for you to come, check it out. And so I did. I checked out her show, and she was amazing. She have this fierce presence and confidence of like a lion, in this venue that maybe held, 300 people, something along those lines. She was playing at the back of the stadium. It was really incredible. And her band was not at the level that she was. And her material was not at the level at that time, at the level of her performance ability, which was magnetic. And so I went up to her afterwards and I told her that she had huge balls. I said, "You have huge elephant balls. I can't even believe, you are an incredible performer, and how attached are you to this band?" And so she said, "Why?" And I said, "Listen, here's an opportunity. I have been working on some material with a multi-platinum producer, and we would love to, I would love to try to see if you're the right artist for this project." And she said, "Okay. And let's do it." And I told her, I said, "Your band will not be a part of this. Your current songs will not be a part of this. It's going to be something totally different and new." And she's like, "Let's do it." Her work ethic was incredible. And I tried to sell it to we went outside. I called my production partner. Um, and unfortunately, he did not see it right away. And so it took months until he really understood the level of talent that she had, because it needed to be completely repackaged. And that's what I was talking about earlier, where you have to be objective enough to see yourself and your product, your music, as a commodity. And not just as, this message from your heart, which hopefully it is, so that it's completely authentic. But at the same time, it's got to be judged with the same level of detail as selling any product. And so we finally got it over the line and turned her into the biggest star in the world. The album that we were working on during the time that I was working with her was The Fame, her debut album, which uh, spent 108 weeks on the Billboard charts and at, number one. He's very, it got Billboard's album of the decade. So it spent more weeks at number one than any other album for those 10 years. And actually, Billboard told me it was 12, but they were doing it by decade. So we're very pleased with the results. And, if she didn't have all that drive, this never would have happened. The level of commitment, drive, talent, and
Did
persistence.
you see things that reminded you of yourself? You were so young. I mean, we were talking just as you mentioned from the day you were a teenager and just got like this opportunity and you were told like to marry with music. And at the same time, years after years of you being the most experienced, probably young girl in this industry, writing songs for everyone. And then you recognize this talent. So I guess like, was there something that touched you like
Oh,
personally,
yeah,
even
her.
that reminded you of
I mean,
yourself?
definitely tech from a technical perspective, me having been an artist myself, I think helped dramatically in knowing what to look for in other artists. So, I can tell when, if the sound man in a venue is crap. I can tell if the guitarist turned himself up to 11 out of 10 and the singer can't hear themselves. I can tell when somebody's confidence and magnetism is so great, like Lady Gaga's was, that all of the difficulties around her, her band at the time, as I said, wasn't up to her levels. So, her musicians playing out of time, the sort of semblance of balance wasn't there. But because I was a musician myself, I've played with some crappy musicians before, so I know what that's like. And to rise above it and be able to say, okay, her tone, her timbre, her, stage presence, her confidence, you lock in with her pitch, and then things that you can't see on stage, which you see behind the scenes, her work ethic, her drive, all of these things are crucial. And her ability to, you got to be likable. You got to be able to walk into these meetings with people and have them be an evangelist for you. So she had all of those things, which is so
And
rare.
you could see that. So that brings me to my next question. It's a podcast also about creativity and AI and how it's going to affect, the world of artists as a whole and also musicians. And I had an episode talking about AI pop stars and even an episode about how films will be generated with AI. And so my question is, and it's related to a little bit to what you just said. What do you think is going to be so unique about people that you recognize in real talents, the genuine artists that AI cannot replace? Do you think our attraction to pop culture is driven more by performance, aesthetic, or just our need to just connect with someone, to connect with if it's an actor, so the actor's character in real life, or a musician in real life? People just love her, love you as an artist. I mean, what do you think? What do you think about AI and real people performing?
I think, listen, I think anyone trying to fight technology will lose. And you must go in with the knowledge that whether you like it or not, right now it's a minority of music that is, you know, AI at the top of the charts. I think they've been at the top of the charts 2 or 3 times at number one. But not only is it coming, it's here. So the artists that will win will obviously have to be great, which there are many artists that are great already, but they will have to be so unique that, like I've tried just to experiment, tried playing around with Suno and different AI platforms. And, you're giving a prompt as if you were to ChatGPT to create a song. It's not the craft of songwriting. So the more complex your chord progressions are and the more original your melodies are, and the more unique the tone and timbre of your voice is, that is going to be your fingerprint and what's distinctively human about you, as opposed to AI, which for now is more generic. The chord progressions are much less, and the instrumentation choices are much less unique. But the fact is, every week there are advances with this. So you have to realize it's coming, and live performances are crucial.
But it's interesting, even before the live performances, sorry, I just thought about it when you were talking about songwriting. And I mean, as a songwriter, even, you have a process you're very familiar with. I'm pretty sure you also, bring yourself to the paper or to the computer or whatever when you write songs. And then all of a sudden you have just content everywhere. People can write. So I'm sure you can tell, just as you could tell the difference between real talent and, crappy band and these kind of things. You can tell also the difference between just the noise of AI, even in songwriting, and, a real songwriter writing a song.
Well, I would like to say that possibly, but I'm the managing director of the Align AI Foundation, which basically raises money for research and development of AI that is safe and prevents harm and damage that's happening, because obviously AI is replacing jobs left and right. Over 370,000 jobs were lost, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago in the government, over 30,000 jobs at Amazon. And trust me, they're coming for everyone. It's intelligence and expertise, it no longer holds the same value that it did because it's prevalent everywhere. And so having the ability to make your expertise as unique as possible while still being palatable. I mean, nobody wants something that's so weird and out there that they don't like it anymore. It's a hard balance. AI is improving every week, and the dangers of AI are growing exponentially. And it's something that I'm sure you may have heard that Anthropic stopped the release of its latest technology because it could allow hackers to learn how to do new things and use AI for autonomous weapons and mass surveillance and all of the problems that we're seeing. So, in terms of music, will it become more and more realistic and unique over time as AI is now coding other AI and doesn't require the human hand or a human prompt? It probably will get to the level that, the best songwriters are now because it collects, all of the data that is available on the internet or to everyone. And we've got to make sure that it's collecting good data and not bad data, which is another big problem because it spits out bad data to people through the LLMs and, like ChatGPT, Claude, and whatnot. So,
Wow, you surprised me with your answers. I was sure you were going to say, like, as a songwriter, no way. And everything is so generic. And I'm so surprised and now very worried, I have to say.
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry to worry you, but there should be major concern around AI safety. Money has to be put towards AI research
Right.
because, now today I saw something on Instagram that said Jeff Bezos opened basically AI doctors on Amazon where you could get up to 5 free visits. And that if you're in the middle of the night and you've got a fever or something like that, and you can't get a hold of a doctor, you've got somebody there who can diagnose you and prescribe medicine, and then and then has all of your health data, and then how is that going to affect your life? It's truly, AI is very real. And I think we're at the beginning where people are starting to understand the level of how it will affect us, but I'd say 90% of people have no idea um, how vulnerable they are and how at risk their jobs are.
So let's talk a little bit about your platform then, because I think that to some extent, the solutions that you're proposing might solve at least the part that's supposed to help musicians, the real musicians, I mean, the humans one. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Again, sorry for the bad news in my response to the last question, but here's something that might make you feel a little bit better. Music Soul is my platform with my co-founder, Aris Persidis. We have built an AI platform that is a music streaming platform and marketplace, and basically a whole music ecosystem where for new established artists, regular users, what it does is imagine that Spotify, Ticketmaster, Instagram, and Etsy had a baby. So that and Amazon, excuse me, Amazon's a very important part of that. All of them have a baby so that it's basically a one-stop shop where you can listen to any song you want. We have the music license to all the music on the internet. You can watch any podcast. You can go into a metaverse. You can go shopping for any, anything you want, like on Amazon. You can sell things from your home, like, Etsy, or set up a little business and make money. You can buy tickets to concerts, events. You can make dinner and travel reservations. It's literally a whole ecosystem where music is the thread. You can make new music, you can donate to causes. I mean, it's literally pop culture's first super app. That's what it is. And what really differentiates it from all of these other platforms is it uses AI to basically analyze the content. So let's say, the social media aspect of it, let's say you're posting a new song as an example. Right now, on most of the other platforms are getting 0.004 cents per stream. So that means even if you got a billion streams, Snoop Dogg had said he got less than $45,000 for a billion streams. So that is ludicrous.
That
Here,
can't incentivize, talents anyways. You can't
yeah,
incentivize people like that, motivate them.
exactly. On Music Soul, if I post a song, the AI, you sign up for free, just like you would Instagram or anything else. The AI will analyze my song or my video or or whatever content that I am posting. And then it will scan the audience and then do data matching of all of the people in our audience who are being pushed out to 3.9 billion eyeballs through our brand partners. And so it will match a brand to every user based on a shared set of data. So all of the sudden, we eradicate the followers and the popularity contest because we don't think that, you know, uh, Picasso's better than Monet because he has more followers. Now we're going to put 250 million eyeballs who are all curated, data driven eyeballs specifically to the content that's been analyzed by the AI. So we know that the likelihood of these people liking your music is extremely high. And then whatever you can capture and keep as the artist or user, you will retain 70% of all
Wow.
streaming and advertising revenue. So right now, the streaming revenue, as I said, on Spotify and whatnot, is 0.004 cents per stream. And there's not a platform that I'm aware of that gives any advertising revenue because that's completely, for the platform. I said, if I'm making a brand new platform, I'm taking 70% off the top. I'm giving it to the people who deserve it, the artists, the content creators. And do I just think that me and my partners deserve 30% for setting this up? Absolutely. And so we do this data matching thing. And for the brands, why this is so incredible for brands is because they get the customer journey of, okay, we have like activations on Music Soul. So it might be something like, just as a use case example, a brand like Estee Lauder could push out to their 150 million subscribers, hop onto Music Soul for a chance to receive a makeover and a meet and greet backstage with Beyonce. And literally, you'd go on to Music Soul, type in your zip code so it geofences you. Let's say I'm the winner. I get a makeover. There'll be multiple winners on every stop of the tour. They all receive makeovers. And then their meet and greet with Beyonce is live streamed out to the entire platform, not just Estee Lauder and Beyonce's pages, but 3.9 billion people. So it's totally insane because then if someone, were to comment up, Wendy, your makeup looks so great when you're meeting Beyonce backstage, they can click into the marketplace onto, Estee Lauder's profile, like their storefront, click on my video.
And the specific color palette, even, right?
So literally, you know how right now, like on Instagram, it's like click link in bio, go to the next site, search for it. It's like 5 clicks till it's in your cart. Here on the video of me getting my makeover, they can literally just click on the video itself and all the contents will be put into my shopping cart and sent to my home. So it just closes that loop for the brand So exactly where they're advertising, they are capturing and keeping their audience. And for the user, it makes it so fun. They're not sitting through some annoying advertisement. Like after 30 seconds, you could skip it. Like everyone skips it. It's so boring. Here, this is like fun, engaging, interactive, and you're, as the user making money on things that you're currently doing for free. So can you imagine with your social media or this podcast right now that you're making real dollars? Like it's a brand new economic layer for media that doesn't currently exist. So kind of like Uber, like with Uber, if you got a car, you got a job. Now, if you've got music or videos or content, you've got a job because you no longer have to rely on followers because we'll throw 250 million
Right.
eyeballs on your content and pay you 70% for it.
I think what's really stand out in this platform is also about personalization. Everyone's talking about personalization. I don't know, you are targeted by name or by your shopping cart, as you mentioned, but the fact that you put everything together, the art you like, the music, the whatever it is that you like with what you buy just gets you a much better personalization, both as an artist and as a user. So I think that's what's very, very important. I had a very
I just wanted to comment on what you just said because we have 3 AI loops running through Music Soul that literally grow and change with you. So let's say that you were matched with a brand when you first signed up, but your interests change. The AI will say, okay, well, now this person is more interested, instead of music, they're more interested in fashion or real estate. Or as your life change and your preferences change, the app grows with you and will match you with different eyeballs depending on how you grow. So that is something that's so specific that it could basically, tell you what you ate for lunch last Wednesday. I mean, it's pretty awesome. And
and you mentioned it's for all content creators, not just for musicians. I mean, it's called Music Soul, but it's like other content creators like me as a podcaster. As
absolutely, absolutely. So let's say like someone like my mom, she's not going to share too many personal things online. So let's say she shares a John Mayer song and then someone else shares and someone else shares it and the last person purchases a John Mayer t-shirt. Each person in that chain will receive a commission off that t-shirt at varying rates depending on how close they are to the sale. But people who are actively sharing on Music Soul will make approximately about $1,000 to $1,600 per month just by sharing someone else's content. So you don't have to be even a content creator because you're making money by sharing and engagement. If you are a content creator, instead of 0.004 cents per stream, you are getting 70% of streaming and advertising and multiple revenue streams instead of just one. So that you can literally, this is like quit your day job money.
yeah.
It's really, really exciting.
It sounds like it. Sorry, it sounds like it. And do you think will you allow like AI creators, AI artists themselves, or what's your philosophy about that?
So I think, we will, but we have my business partner, as an example, is one of the top 50 futurists, Eris Persidis. He is, has been doing AI since the 90s. He is truly, they've written books about this guy. He understands AI and his own IP around, AI that hasn't been launched yet, that he has technology that will be built into Music Soul to be able to differentiate what is created via AI and what isn't. We will have incredible safeguards. It'll be like Fort Knox, to try to, that people will not be able to have multiple accounts that'll be tied not only to your IP addresses, and There's things that can follow your retina to see if you're a human or not and can differentiate whether or not it's an actual human or a video. There are all sorts of things that we will have protections, but AI will be on the platform. There are discussions right now about whether it will be paid in the same 70% uh, at the same 70% rate that humans will. No answer on that yet, but it's really, really important that we embrace the change that's here and act accordingly. I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine, Bruce Tyler, who is high up at Sony. He is the founder of A Break Music, which really supports a lot of independent artists and helps them. He's got great relationships with major labels and helps elevate careers. Anyway, Bruce and I were talking about how AI is affecting, the music industry in general. And the first thing I said to him, I said, Billboard should, just like there's differences between the pop chart and the country chart and the hip hop chart, why can't there just be an AI chart so that it's humans, not humans versus humans, but people can get to the top of their field in their genre, and then AI can have their own charts. So it's not, man against machine, basically. And I think that that differentiation would really solve a lot of problems so that there can be, there's a place for it, but it's not an oversaturated market where, you know, humans are, struggling to compete against AI.
It sounds right, because even if you think about, even things before AI, people really care about whether something is synthesized or printed. For example, if we think about the print industry versus, paintings or things like that. So it's kind of very similar. And people would like to know if they're holding a real diamond or a real Picasso or a genuine one. And I think it's very transparent if you just have if they have their own billboard. And I can like AI music, it's fine, but I just want to know about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That perfectly stated.
And I think that I would like to know because really, I feel like you really live for talent and music and you've been through it yourself and now you're helping others to create it and even more creators and you care about the creativity of human basically if I think about your platform and everything else you do. So what do you think are the biggest barriers today to fostering a truly meaningful innovative music or art or even content? Because we talked about commoditization, sorry. Everything is commoditized nowadays with AI. And I even said I was scared to hear that even as a songwriter, you think that AI is going to be the same or even surpass human writers. So, okay, so what are the barriers to still continue to differentiate yourself as a human, even in this world, and be motivated?
Well, again, I really think that there are a lot of difficulties, and the barriers are curation is the number one problem because you can put yourself up on, let's say, Spotify, and even if you got 1 billion streams, you're making less than $45,000. Okay, you might as well, work at a fast food restaurant. I mean, it's not enough money to live in at least a major city. It's just people don't want to live hand to mouth. They want to have something that they can rely on. And the whole reason behind Music Soul, and again, is literally this thing that is AI, instead of taking your job away, is actually giving you a job because it's curated, data driven mass promotion to your content. And that is the biggest problem that needs to be solved. And so that's exactly why I've devoted my life to this, because everyone says to me, Wendy, why don't you hop into the studio with another artist or, release stuff yourself? And I said, why would I do that when there are limitations on my success? When great performance no longer equals great reward, what is the point? It is so important that everybody doesn't, if I release a song and it only gets so many streams or so many likes, that becomes a popularity contest. Don't you think that the biggest artists in the world should have the exact same, the smallest artists in the world should have the same opportunities as the largest artists in the world, that they should get the same kind of mass promotions that right now the record labels are paying big money for? And now, even for record labels, Music Soul is so amazing because right now they have to throw at least $1 million per single to really launch an artist, through all of the different distribution platforms to really give it a shot. Now they can see what that artist can do at scale because we're throwing 250 million eyeballs at least at every single piece of artist content. And then what we do, because we don't want the labels just judging based on streams and plays and all these artificial things, we are asking the artist, is it, Sony or Universal or Warner Brothers would like to give you a record deal and would like to view your statistics. Do you give us permission to have them see your statistics so that it's completely private? And instead of getting likes, you are rewarded with dollars and cents. And so, again, what are the biggest barriers? Money. Artists need to be able to have money to survive. Um, and they need to have money to tour and produce music beautifully. Here, this is making automated engagement, which is creating a brand new revenue stream for them. So those are the problems. It's curation. Everybody has the same problems no matter what business that you're in. First, it's discovery.
Even from the user point of view, I think curation is a big issue because we're so flooded with noise and we just want to get what we want to hear and what we want to see.
Right. So they're literally, no matter if you're a user and you are in real estate, if you're in whatever business you're in, there are three things that every artist, content creator, business, even a charity needs. They need discovery. Who's going to find me? How are they going to find me? They need curated, data driven mass promotion. And then they need monetization. And because right now, even if you're again on Spotify and got a billion streams and everyone found you, you're not monetizing it. So these are the three things that Music Soul solves. And we really built our platform around those things.
So make money directly from what you're building and not just from the merchandise and from everything else, just straight from being exposed.
And it's great.
I like it because even for my podcast, I know my audience. I have it's an in-depth podcast. I remember telling you that. I know that professors are following me and startup founders and people from the business world. And many times you have podcasts, I don't know, sharing about, sometimes I'm like exaggerating, but conspiracy theories, and they're getting 2 million people, but are they the audience that some brand needs, or are they the relevant audience you were trying to target? So I think like it's all about matching, as you mentioned, the content to the right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And for the last question, because we need to end soon and everything really, I would be here for hours with you just discussing and digging into your career and going back to your career. But I want to end with something personal that I always end with. Was there a moment that you remember, and it can be a daily life moment or just a very biggest experience you had, that you felt like creativity or thinking creatively or doing something creative really saved your soul, or just saved you from a moment? Can you think about anything like that?
There's one thing that came to mind when I was, again, very, very young. My first experience was I had gone into the studio with a wonderful producer British producer named Gary Lyons. He produced people like the Rolling Stones and Aerosmith and a couple people like that who, pretty amazing. And I had bought my own recording equipment to be able to make changes. I taught myself how to use it so that I could learn production because I had very strong opinions. I'd been writing songs since I was 7. I had very strong opinions on what sounds good, what sounds bad. If I could have learned how to, play every instrument, I would have. But anyway, moving right along, one day my equipment broke down and I had, someone coming over to fix it. It was a guy named Danger Mental who is an incredible, not only the technical wizard and great record producer and engineer, but he, was working on a ton of records and he came over to help me fix my equipment. And he heard my music and he said, "That's you singing? It doesn't sound like your speaking voice." I said, "Yes." He goes, "It sounds great. Are you interested in, have you ever sang on anyone else's record before?" And again, I was probably about 18 and I said, "No, I hadn't." And he said, "Would you like to come sing on a record this weekend?" I said, "Sure." So he said, "Meet me over by the Staten Island ferry." And I was born and raised in New York City. I had never been to Staten Island. And we went on the Staten Island ferry and he took me to a studio and opened up the door and this cloud of smoke comes out. And on the other side of the door was the Wu-Tang Clan. And I went into the studio and they're like, "Who's this girl? Danger, what, this girl that you're bringing in?" And he's like, "No, no, no, she can sing. She can sing." And so they're like, "All right, well, sing this." And they played the track. And again, I was like, overly confident little 18-year-old girl. And I basically said, I'll sing it, but that's not a hit. And they're like, "What? What are you
I can't believe you said that.
I couldn't believe I mean, literally my attitude at that time, I had been writing songs since I was 7. So, and the producer, Danger Mental, brought me in, was like ready to kill me. He's like, "What are you saying to them?" And I was like, "Listen, you got like 2 chord changes here. There's no, tension before the chorus for the chorus to land on, a whole whatever." They analyzed their music and told and critiqued it. And they're like, "If you think you could do better, go into the back room, rewrite the song." So I did. I rewrote it. We
No way.
re-recorded it right then and there. Danger Mental, he presses play to play it for them, afterwards, and they loved it. And I ended up doing, and they call me Wendy Z100. So Z100 is the huge radio station in New York City. It's like the pop radio station. And so, and they had a big gold chain and they put it around my neck. And I felt like that was my, so that was a moment when creativity saved me, because I felt like I understood songwriting and song structure to such a degree at that point that I could implement it in real time and then create a relationship that lasted. Really, I did a ton of songs with Ninth Prince, it was part of Wu-Tang Clan, and we opened up for Sean Paul, and
Wow.
he's huge. We got, a huge record deal offer, and lots of great things came from me being true to myself and my art. And
That's amazing.
I'm trying to do the best I can.
I started with what inspired you, and I think I'm ending up with you're inspiring other young women, especially because it's not something, it's incredible. You were 18. You were 18, so, and inspiring everyone else. Just stand on your, just, be true to your talent, I guess.
You got to be true to yourself. I mean, literally the song that got me the record deal with Universal, my manager at the time, my lawyer at the time, all of my team around me were like, Wendy, you got Spanish guitar in this song. Like, what are you thinking? It's got all these chord changes. This is not, there's no way that this is going to be acceptable. But it was so personal and from my heart that that's what got me the deal. And so you do have to trust your instincts regardless of what the noise is saying around you. But you also have to be um, open to constructive criticism, but only from people who are already, successful in where you're trying to go. So if, your mom says, oh, that's not a great song, and she's not a songwriter, don't take her advice. If it's coming from somebody who is exactly in their career where you want to be, you got to be able to take constructive criticism and elevate your brand, because that's what you are ultimately. You are a brand and you want as much authenticity. That is the power of authenticity will spiral out to the world.
It's a great tip. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inspiring us for the past hour. It was lovely to have you.
Lovely to be here. Thank you so much for everything. Really appreciate you.